Certainly. The story of John Allen Chau and the North Sentinelese people raises important questions about the ethics of contact with isolated tribes and the broader implications of cultural interaction. Here's a more expanded overview that delves into various aspects of this topic. Background on the North Sentinelese people. Geographical context. North Sentinel Island is one of the many islands in the Andaman and Nicobar archipelago and the Bay of Bengal. This island is roughly 60 square kilometers in size and is surrounded by coral reefs, making it challenging for outsiders to approach. The dense forests provide shelter to the North Sentinelese, who have lived in isolation for thousands of years. Historical isolation. The North Sentinelese are believed to have been living on the island for around 10,000 years, remaining largely cut off from the outside world. Their isolation is a result of their refusal to engage with outsiders and the geographical barriers that separate them from other inhabited areas. Their hunter-gatherer lifestyle has persisted, as they have not adopted agriculture or modern technologies. John Allen Chau's mission. Motivation and actions. John Allen Chau was a 26-year-old American missionary with a strong desire to spread Christianity. His journey to North Sentinel Island was fueled by a conviction that he needed to share his faith with what he perceived as a group of people who had never heard of Jesus. His actions raise questions about cultural imperialism, religious zealotry, and the ethical implications of missionary work in isolated communities. Chau's decision to bribe local fishermen to take him to the island and his subsequent attempts to communicate with the Sentinelese illustrate a lack of understanding and respect for their autonomy. His repeated forays onto the island, despite violent warnings, demonstrated an obsession that many would argue was reckless and misguided. Encounters with the Sentinelese. Previous contact attempts. Historically, there have been several attempts by outsiders to establish contact with the North Sentinelese, often with violent outcomes. For instance, in 1867, survivors of a shipwreck were attacked, leading to their rescue by the British Royal Navy. Later, in 1974, an Indian film crew faced hostility when they tried to film the tribe, resulting in injury. The 1991 expedition led by Indian anthropologist Madhumala Chattopadhyay marked a rare moment of peaceful interaction, where the Sentinelese accepted coconuts from outsiders. However, this goodwill was short-lived, and subsequent encounters were met with aggression, reinforcing the tribe's desire to remain isolated. The government's policy and ethical considerations. Protection measures. Following Chau's death, the Indian government reinforced its policy of isolation. The island is now off-limits to outsiders, with a buffer zone established to protect the tribe. This decision reflects a broader recognition of the rights of indigenous peoples to maintain their way of life without outside interference. Cultural preservation versus modernization. The debate surrounding the North Sentinelese touches on the tension between cultural preservation and the pressures of modernization. While some argue that contact with the outside world can lead to improvements in health and education, the reality is that many indigenous communities have suffered negative consequences from such interactions. Historically, tribes that have come into contact with modern society have faced diseases to which they have no immunity, leading to significant population declines. The introduction of non-native foods and substances can disrupt traditional diets and lead to health issues, including obesity and addiction. The case of the Jarawa tribe. Comparative analysis. The Jarawa tribe, another indigenous group in the Andaman Islands, initially experienced a period of successful isolation. However, when the Indian government sought to establish friendly contact in the 1970s, the results were mixed. While some members integrated into modern society, many struggled with the transition, facing health issues and cultural dislocation. The Jarawa's experience serves as a cautionary tale, highlighting the challenges that come with the integration of isolated tribes into the broader world. It illustrates the need for a nuanced approach that respects the desires of indigenous peoples to maintain their cultural identity while navigating modern challenges. The global perspective on isolated tribes. Indigenous rights. The situation of the North Sentinelese prompts broader discussions about the rights of indigenous peoples worldwide. Many activists argue for the right of isolated tribes to live free from outside interference, emphasizing the importance of self-determination and cultural preservation. In recent years, there has been a growing awareness of the need to respect the autonomy of indigenous communities. This includes recognizing their rights to land, culture, and governance, as well as the impact of external forces on their traditional ways of life. Modern challenges: as globalization continues to spread, the pressure on isolated tribes intensifies. Climate change, resource extraction, and economic development pose threats to their habitats and ways of life. Balancing the need for conservation with the rights of indigenous peoples remains a complex and often contentious issue. Conclusion. The story of John Allen Chau and the North Sentinelese people serves as a powerful reminder of the complexities involved in cultural interaction and the ethical responsibilities that come with it. The situation invites reflection on the broader implications of our actions and the need for sensitivity towards the desires and rights of isolated communities. Ultimately, the choice to protect the North Sentinelese from the outside world may be the most respectful and ethical approach, allowing them to continue their way of life as they have for thousands of years. As we consider the implications of contact with isolated tribes, it is essential to listen to their voices and respect their autonomy, prioritizing their well-being over the impulse to connect.